Boker Tov.
Boker Tov. How are you doing?
Thank God. No complaints. And you?
Doing well. The complaints I have are so minor and no one listens to them anyway.
There you go.
We did have an opportunity to celebrate December birthdays with our kids and grandkids yesterday.
Nice.
So that was the highlight.
Very good. That's a blessing.
Right. How is your Phoenix crew doing?
They are doing well. My niece got a dog. That's the new excitement, and they're planning their wedding. And yeah.
When's the wedding?
April 10th.
You think you're going to be able to get there?
Yeah, I will drive for that. I will drive. Yeah. There's only going to be 12 people there at the wedding itself, and so
Yeah. I think things will start to be on the decline by then. God willing.
It's one of the reasons I didn't go for Thanksgiving. It was like, let's not risk anything. I need to be available in April.
Right.
Yeah, hold on a second.
I may drive to my
wedding?
sister's.
What's that?
Will you take Buddy to the wedding?
No, Buddy doesn't travel well.
Oh,
Buddy will
Buddy
make me
loves other
crazy
people.
for the entire 20 hours in the car or whatever it is.
But he just loves people too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You just never.
Particularly the mailman. He loves the mailman.
Loves mailman, but he doesn't. If I'm in a room, he does not like to have other people around, and he can get a little aggressive.
oh, really?
He
Little.
protects me
Yeah.
to a fault.
He's cute.
And yeah. And if he bites me again, he's going to be delicious.
That's how well he protects you. He bites you to make sure you're
Yes,
protected.
indeed.
Did he bite you?
He does. He goes into a fugue state. He's the most adorable little thing, and then he'll go into a fugue state for seconds, and he'll bite me, and then run away.
He's adorable.
So we have him on doggy Prozac.
Gee.
And does that mean you get to take the Prozac when you're around the dog, or the dog takes the Prozac?
I'm open. Whatever will work.
You could share.
Yeah, Lisa Lowenstein has been very helpful, and it's all good.
Morning.
Good
Hi, Mark.
morning. Good morning, everybody.
Speaking of dogs,
Hi, Jean.
Yeah, there you
She
go.
loves to join.
Lexi.
She loves to join and then she leaves.
Well, you know what? She loves the intellectual stimulation.
Yeah, until she has to scratch, then she's not interested.
Yeah. Well, there's the priorities.
Exactly. Look, say hi. Can you say hi? There you go. No, bye. Time to mute.
Yeah. The dog will say anything. You'll be very wealthy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Looking for her.
You say hi. Say
Say,
hi.
and you could use 4-letter words. I don't think Gina will care.
That's right.
You're racking up the money. My dog uses 4-letter words.
Like mama?
Yeah, there you go. That works.
That would be nice if I could hear that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi.
Good morning, everybody. Rhodey, again, Mazel Tov on the baby, on the grandbaby.
Thank you. We're starting our trip back. We got it to my mom's house today. That's in New Jersey. So we've got a long hours in front of us starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay,
I used to drive from Dallas to New York every single summer. I did it for about 8 years to go to camp up there. I like the drive.
Was it a boy or a girl?
A boy. Yeah.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Yes, it's wonderful. He was very premature, and he's now grown, and he's looking like a normal baby now, 2 months old, and he's about probably 8 pounds now. So that's great.
Awesome.
What's his name?
Elliot.
Nice.
Eliyahu.
Very nice. Cantor, I'm joining you for the first time. I heard glowing reports of this class.
Thank you, but there are vicious rumors.
I know.
Glad you're here. Glad you're
That's
here.
okay. We'll all vote afterwards.
There
This
you
one
go.
looks-
All
this
right,
one
so
looks like
I do
a
want to
real
remind
round.
everybody, if at a certain point I'll call on people to read. So if you have the materials in front of you, that will be helpful. All right. If you don't have them, listen, but I'll ask who has it and I'll call on readers. So we are picking up in the mid 1300s. That's where we are at this point. 1347, October of 1347, several trading ships from Genoa, Italy, land in the harbor in Messina, Sicily. Everyone on board those ships is either dead or dying of a mysterious plague. Europeans called it the Black Plague because its victims had big black swellings the size of eggs on their bodies and black splotches all over their skin. I'm gonna hold on one second. Let me do one thing here. Do this. Okay. All right. Today we know that it's the bubonic plague. That was the name of it. Spread through the bites of fleas and lice that lived on infected rats. But in 1347, people had no idea what caused this plague, how to treat it, or how to keep it from spreading. It spread through Europe, the Middle East, North Africa between 1347 and 1351, a 4-year period. The disease killed more than 1 out of every 4 human beings living in that region. To give you a sense with as tragic as what has happened with COVID here in America, the equivalent would be the loss of 85 million lives. Okay, we're talking about a significant experience. Some historians estimated at the time that up to 20 million Europeans died, and today it's known as the greatest natural disaster in history. Nobody knows in reality the true number of people who died, but we do know that so many people did die that the cemeteries were overflowing, and at one point, the Pope sanctified the waters of the Rhine River so that the bodies could be thrown into the river, considered having had a Christian burial. So you have a sense of the overwhelming nature of this. Of course, it has a connection to Jews. We'll get there, I promise. Most people viewed the plague as an act of God and of divine punishment. You know, just like we Jews, we say, because of our sins, we were punished. We were thrown out of the land. Most people understood this in religious terms. God was punishing. And to avoid punishment, Christians, Jews, Muslims tried desperately to purify themselves through fasting and prayer. That was their first reaction. However, increasingly throughout Europe, Christians began to blame non-believers and heretics for the epidemic. They're faced with the terror and fear, and they turn to God and look for scapegoats. And you can only imagine we served as a very convenient scapegoat. Jacob von Konigsbogen, a priest and a historian, wrote reading number 1. Sandy, you've got the first square, so I'm going to call on you.
Okay. In the matter of this plague, the Jews throughout the world were reviled and accused in all lands of having caused it through the poison they ate. They are said to have put into the water and the wells. That is what they are accused of. And for this reason, the Jews were burnt all the way from the Mediterranean Sea into Germany.
Okay, so there's a disagreement among historians as to when this rumor, this attack on the Jews as poisoning wells originated. You know, if you read Robert Chazen, he'll tell you it's really about the 12th century, but the majority think it's the 14th century and think it's this period of time. I just finished a number of articles on that. So this is the first time, 1348 in Savoy, a town in southeastern France, right by the border of Switzerland. As far as many historians see it, is the first to formally accuse Jews of causing plagues by poisoning wells. Every Jew in that town was arrested. All his property is confiscated. officials tortured the prisoners until they confessed to their crimes. And after a trial based on those forced confessions, 11 Jews are burned alive. Things settle down, but it's not long. News of the murders spread, and mobs in other cities drag Jews from their homes and throw them into bonfires. Now, I want to point out, and you'll see this in a couple of ways, this is the mob mentality. There's a distinction between official positions of both the church and the civil authorities and how the people are behaving. Pope Clement VI issues 2 bulls in an effort to stop the killing of Jews. He points out that people of all religions are dying. Jews were victims like everybody else. Their death rate was the same as everybody else's. But at the end of the day, it does nothing to ease the fear caused by the plagues. Nobody knows exactly how many Jewish communities were destroyed during this 4-year period. According to some sources, mobs destroyed as many as 60 large Jewish communities and 150 smaller ones. We're talking about significant damage. A Spanish rabbi of the 1300s estimated that 16,000 Jews died in these attacks. Now, I want to point out that's more than died in the Crusades. And yet this story doesn't seem to have the historical recognition. All right. Elsewhere in the Middle East and in North Africa, millions of people are also dying as a result of this plague. But here, few Jews have the blame put on them, or even on Christians. Okay, why is it that the Christians in Europe and Muslims in North Africa and Middle East respond so differently to the plague? One answer can be in how the 2 religions, Christianity and Islam, viewed non-believers in the 14th century. Muslims expected non-believers to obey the law, to show respect for Islam, to pay special taxes, and to accept certain humiliations. As long as these requirements are met, they're left alone. Think of it as apartheid, but we're not going to kill you. Christians, on the other hand, saw the mere presence of non-believers, their presence, as contaminating the community, and they thought that that a community had to be united in its belief to be acceptable to God. The presence of a Jew, the presence of a Muslim might make the entire community unacceptable before God. And as a result, non-believers don't have to do anything to be a threat. Just their mere existence is a reason enough to fear them and to persecute them. That's one of the major distinctions. So in one case, you've got the issue of they can live amongst us. It's not in any way contaminating us. Stay in your place, apartheid, your secondary status. And the other, it's we can't even have your presence here because you contaminate us, and therefore we have to get rid of you. Nonetheless, and I really want to go back to this, the Christian mobs in Europe are not carrying out a religious mandate. They are openly defying the Pope and other religious leaders in doing so. All right. They're also defying their political leaders. For example, February of 1349, the town council of Strasbourg, the city in present-day France, voted to protect Jews from attack. The town council votes to protect the Jews from attack. That evening, the members of the city's guild overthrow the council and put a new one in place. The new council promptly orders all the Jews to be arrested. And our same writer as the first one describes what happened next. Nomi, I have you in square 2. No, okay, Gail, 2. You have the readings? You're in square 3.
On Saturday, that was St. Valentine's Day, they burnt the Jews on a wooden platform in their cemetery. They were about 2,000 people. Those who wanted to baptize themselves were spared. Many small children were taken out of the fire and baptized against the will of their fathers and mothers. And everything that was owed to the Jews was canceled. And the Jew had to surrender all pledges and notes that they had taken for debts. The council, however, took the cash that the Jews possessed and divided it among the working men proportionately. The money was indeed the thing that killed the Jews. If they had been poor, and if the feudal lords had not been in debt to them, they would not have been burnt. After this, wealth was divided among the artisans. Some gave their share to the cathedral or to the church on the advice of their confessors. Thus were the Jews burnt at Strasbourg, and in the same year, in all the cities of the Rhine. In some towns, they burnt the Jews after a trial, on others without a trial. In some cities, the Jews themselves set fire to their own houses and cremated themselves.
Okay. This, you know, we hear all the stories of the Holocaust, and it rightfully just terrifies us and appalls us, but it's not the first time. That's what's really key here. So why did the artisans and other working men in many cities feel differently than the leadership? And the reality is the mobs are made up of people who are often in debt. When they needed money for their businesses, family emergencies, or taxes, the only place they could get a loan was from a moneylender. And by the 14th century, in most European cities, that moneylender was almost always a Jew. Why? Every other occupation was closed to them. They were limited in what they could do. All right, Christians didn't want to take this sin upon themselves. Jews found a loophole or a way through the Bible to kind of explain it and make it acceptable, given no options, and took on these roles. They weren't allowed to own land. They weren't allowed to engage in farming. They weren't allowed to join a guild. Even their trade ability was limited, as they were told you had to pay a fee to get into the market, a special Jew fee, and then you can only be there for certain hours. And so even trading was limited. And so that they were the loan sharks per se. In most cases, when someone would take a loan, the borrower had to provide security, not a surprise for the loan, property of some sort or assets that the lender could claim if the borrower fails to pay. We get this. We do. Anytime you take out a loan, you understand, you better have collateral. The item has to be at least the value of whatever the loan is. Usually it's a piece of land, a building, some kind of work animals, etc. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. I turned the wrong page. I'm sorry. Jewish moneylenders are arousing the hatred of the people for a number of reasons. So this is where I'll go. Where did the Jews get the money? So the king would not lend money to the Jews. What he would do is charge them a fee for the money. So if I'm going to give you $100,000 to lend out, I'm going to charge you $50,000 or $20,000. Right? Jews now have to make up that $20,000 before they even talk about interest. So what's the rate you're going to charge on your loans? Very high rates. They were caught between in an impossible situation. All right. So the king is literally selling them money because he can't loan it to the people. The Jews turn around and extend the loans, but at high interest rates. And you can understand where Jews are cheap and such kinds of things could get communicated. If the only loan I can get is at 40% or 35%, you can understand the accusations that are happening. Despite these high interest rates, most people were able to pay their debts when things were good. However, we know that's not always the case. When times were hard, as in the 14th century, most borrowers lost almost everything. They rarely blamed their losses on a drought that destroyed the crops, on the wars that devastated much of Europe, on the plague or bad luck. All right, because it's not easy. It's easier to direct your anger at a person who loaned you the money and was now demanding repayment. The loan was personal, and so was the anger. They often knew the lender by name, and so when their anger was easily accessed towards that person, and you can see how it plays out. As money lending became an increasingly risky business, Jews find themselves further and further isolated among the population. They could count on protection only when the ruler's interests matched their own. And even then, sometimes the ruler was not willing to risk the wrath of the mobs. It just wasn't worth the risk. Okay, so you have a sense of what's playing out here financially. Any comments or questions yet? Yes, Joyce.
Okay, could you explain again? The kings wouldn't lend money to.
Well, money lending is usury. It's considered by the Bible as unacceptable. So if they lend the Jews money, that's unacceptable. I can sell it to you. You don't owe me anything, is it right? So they sold it to them, and then the Jews would lend it. But because of the cost of buying the money, the loans were at high interest rates.
And they wouldn't do this with the other people other than.
No, because it was forbidden to sell it to Christians. You could do this to, right?
Okay.
All right. So why did the Christians of this time find it so easy to hate the Jews and believe cruel lies about them? The church governed the everyday, daily life in this period. The only book the people knew was the Bible. Remember, there's no printing press yet. We're going to deal with that in next week's lesson. There's no printing press yet. People don't have books on the shelves. They don't look like Sandy's or Lori's backgrounds in the pictures here. Okay, there's no books on shelves or Gail's. All right, and even if you could have books, the great majority of them were illiterate. And so the majority of their information was achieved by going to church and hearing the preacher tell you what was in the Bible. All right. The church is their only source of help in times of flood and famine. So it's a place you can turn. Think about, as a parallel, when Israel returned Gaza, what did the Muslim Brotherhood do? They gave out money and they bought the loyalties of the people there. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's effective. And so that's what the church did. They also gave out money in times of tragedy to buy the loyalty of the people. And so they're the only source of help. It's the only source of information. The rules they lived by were said to be the word of God. This is the world in which there's no internet, there's no television, there are no books. Doesn't even qualify as a Satmar community. There's at least they have books. Okay, and plenty of books. All right. From their perspective, from the Christians' perspective of the times, Jews were seen as both outsiders who refused to participate in the spiritual life of the community, and as wealthy misers. Think of the loans. They're demanding impossible payments from hardworking people who cannot afford to pay. And so when Jews are killed and their money and property are confiscated, people could feel guilty about what they're doing. All right. However, if they could persuade themselves to believe that the people that they are killing and robbing deserve it because they're evil, they can dispatch with all of their guilt. All right. And so there's a sense of it's reciprocal. It just keeps building on itself. We don't like them. They lend us money. We can't repay them. We break our loans. We feel guilty about breaking our loans. It must be something about them. And it just keeps cycling over and over and over. All right, we're going to shift to Southern Europe, to Spain. In contrast to much of Northern Europe, where Jews faced persecution, by contrast, Spain was a haven. By the 15th century, by the 1400s, Spain had the largest Jewish population in the world. 10% of the Spanish population was Jewish. That would be the equivalent of 300,000 Jews in Houston. we know we don't have 300,000 Jews. Is that correct, Sandy?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
More like 62,000.
All right. So 5 times our population, that was the percentage within Spain. Jews were prominent in trade, in medicine, in arts, even in the government. And yet, despite all that, in 1492, Spain expels its entire Jewish population, showing just how precarious life is for outsiders, and particularly the Jews. So let's talk about what happened in the 100 years before 1492. 1378, 30 years after the plague. Okay, the plague started 1347 to 51. So 27 years after the plague is over, a high-ranking Franciscan priest named Ferran Martinez began a campaign against the Jews in Castile. In sermon after sermon, and remember, this is where they're getting their information. In sermon after sermon, he calls on Christians to expel Jews from Spain. Martinez was not a man of great learning, but he was a fantastic speaker. All right? As I've often, anybody who's ever heard Eddie Feinstein speak, I've often said Eddie could read the phone book and have you enthralled by his reading of the book. There are people who are gifted. Clearly, that's the case with this Martinez. And for the next 12 years, he inveighs against them from his pulpit. He endeavors to procure their expulsion from Spain, and even injunctions from the king and the Pope. So again, you've got religious authorities, civil authorities telling him to cut it out. He is too passionate about what he's doing, and he continues. So he begins in 1378. In 1390, the king dies of Castile. The king of Castile dies, and he is succeeded by an infant son, Henry III. Now, as a minority, as an infant, he's not going to rule. And so in his absence, the queen mother, Leonora, becomes very powerful in such a setting. And as is always the case, it just doesn't work out well for Jews. Who is her confessor? Martinez. All right, the guy who's been speaking from the pulpit. They both become very powerful within the state. And almost simultaneously with the death of the king, that first king, the death of the archbishop also happens. And so there's almost no check on Martinez at this point. Freed of all restraint, there's partial destruction of temples and synagogues around the community. There's a feeling of unrest that happens. The king dies in December. By the period of Lent, 3 or 4 months later, with its reminders of the Passion, that serves as a pretext for a fresh series of inflammatory sermons at its highest pitch. 5 months later, on Ash Wednesday, a turbulent crowd breaks into the Jewish quarter of Seville. Afterwards, and they damage everything. Afterwards, the civic authorities hold a couple of the ringleaders accountable, but all that does is serve to exasperate the feelings of the rest of the population. And after further disturbances, order is restored, but there's nonetheless this sense of the spirit of unrest. Martinez has got everybody in a bad place. He continues to speak from the pulpit. 3 months later, in June, the mob could no longer be constrained, and there's this orgy of carnage throughout the city of Seville. The Jewish area, the Juderia, was pitifully sacked. They murdered hundreds of Jews in their homes, and literally more than 5,000 Jews on the streets. Okay? Again, I find it fascinating. We don't even know about these events, and 5 and 10 and 16,000 people are killed, and it's not even on our radar. Many Jewish women and children are sold into slavery. Of those who survived and remained, they were able to do so by accepting baptism. The fury continues to spread through that summer and autumn through the entire peninsula, and entire communities are exterminated. Cordoba was next, then Toledo, where the Jews were burned alive or drowned in the river. hundreds of Jews converted to Christianity to save themselves. Similar events broke out in 70 towns in Seville. In the Kingdom of Valencia, not one single professing Jew was left. Barcelona, the entire community is wiped out. The total number of victims from this period is estimated to be 50,000 Jews. Right? That's the entire population, or close to it, of Jewish population of Houston. Again, why join these mobs? Events in Barcelona once again highlight for us the reasons. When Martinez and his followers arrive in Barcelona in early August, many Christians in the city join with them. Before the two groups make their first assault on the Jewish quarter, they burn a building. It is the building where the record of the debts is kept. There's no proof we owe you anything. Financial reasons again. There's a hatred, but it always plays with a financial undertone as well. The violence that follows is there's an increased pressure on Jews to convert, and Jews were forced, all the Jews who did remain were forced to attend sermons. Okay, again, this is where the community is getting their information, and the preachers would show the Jews the errors of their ways. There were new laws that segregated the Jews, and the Talmud is outlawed from any kind of study, and the Jews are limited in their occupational opportunities. They're making it extremely difficult to be Jewish. So one way is to force them to convert. Another way is to make it impossible, so they'll just choose conversion. And the consequences of all these actions are historically unique. Elsewhere, in other times and places, it's only a weak remnant of Jews who had accepted baptism as the alternative to death. The vast majority had just accepted martyrdom. That's what they did. They allowed themselves to die, and they maintained their Jewish heritage. In Spain, however, things were different. Remember, I told you this is a golden age. It's a time of lots of study and before all this is happening, before 1378, it is a place that the only parallel in history would be modern America. Okay. The morale of the people was great until this period. The social assimilation to the general population had progressed so far that it made the shift to Christianity less of a problem. It's not that big a shift. Then you have, in addition, the expulsion of Jews from all over the place before this. And so even if we get expelled, even if we agree to expulsion, where do we go? All right, France to the north, can't go there. All right. Thus, from the close of the 14th century, a complete new state of affairs exists in Spain. By the side of those now sadly decreasing in wealth, the Jews who stayed converted no longer have the wealth they've had before, openly profess their Judaism. Right with them is this group of conversos, also known as, the word is often used in Marranos, which means pigs, and so we Jews try not to use that word too often. It's not exactly endearing. Conversos, living together, and what we understand is it's probably as many as 300,000 conversos. So, this is how the Christian community is seeing this. They're understanding that there's this mixture of people now. So beyond this outward sham, many of the Jews who converted remained at heart as they had always been. They didn't believe in Christian dogma, and sometimes they weren't so good about even concealing it. They kept the traditional ceremonies in some instances. So for example, they observed the Shabbat as much as they could. And you can tell, now think about a winter day, You're standing up there on a Saturday morning, you're standing on top of a mountain looking down at the valley. All you have to do is see which chimneys have smoke coming out of it. All right. If Jews are not lighting fires on Shabbat, there's no chimney smoke. All right. The more punctilious would only eat meat prepared by kosher butchers. Some went as far to circumcise their children. These are the conversos. And some, they usually married among themselves. And on occasion, they even frequented the synagogue secretly. Okay. So therefore, what you've got from the Christian perspective is all these Jews merged together. And the problem of the conversos now have the right to all the positions in society, they have all the privileges, and they're still not behaving as Christians. And so you have a new problem confronting the Christian church. The Provincial Council of Basel in 1434 urged new measures should be taken to check the blasphemous duplicity of the new Christians, of the conversos. The population, all the more so, the mob, is looking at this and saying, these people are not Christians and they're taking my jobs. They converted. They're taking our jobs away. Jews are not allowed to have those jobs. So I'm losing my job because of someone who is being a hypocrite. All right, I'll stop for a second. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none? All right. So what is it the conversos bring? They bring financial experience. They bring the tax collecting experience. They bring, and that enables them into the financial administration of the country, something they had been previously excluded from. All right. But it's a very lucrative field. And so on top of everything else, the Jews are now becoming wealthy. And you can only imagine how the mob perceives that. Okay. What are the political conditions going on here? Let's look at that. The real ruler of Castile, after King Juan, the young guy dies, King Juan II attains his majority. When he becomes the majority leader, he's not the strongest of kings. He appoints an unpopular favorite, Alvaro de Luna, who is a converso. De Luna appoints the immensely wealthy Diego Arias de Villa, who's also converso, as treasurer of the kingdom. And what happens, like, Jewish communities, we appoint more and more of our own into those positions. And so we have Jews running the money end of things. And thus they begin to share in the unpopularity of the minister. It is not the entire mess. 1449, De Luna orders a forced loan on the people of 1 million, whatever their dollars were, to be raised in Toledo for the purpose of defending the frontier. Now, you can imagine the people who are not in great financial conditions, their reaction to a levy of such a large number. It's regarded with abhorrence. And the responsibility falls on the Jewish loan collectors and the Marrano loan people. There are religious response. The great bell of the cathedral tolls to summon the population, and a fierce mob attacks the house of Dakota, one of the wealthiest tax farmers, and they set it on fire. And this process is repeated in numerous other homes of wealthy conversos. Many of the conversos are killed, and their bodies are hung head downward, which was a way of telling everybody this is really a Jew. Toledo remains the hotbed of disturbance, and in spite of many of the attempts of the Archbishop to conduct an inquiry, right, nothing happens. Again, we have the political leadership, we have the religious leadership, and then we have the great masses. Jews, then the conversos put together an army of 4,000, but after 9 days, they're defeated and their leadership are hung. The problem at this point is so acute for Christians. They cannot trust this population, that only one solution offers itself: the Inquisition. Now, the Inquisition had been issued before this in the 1200s by the Pope in Italy and a few other places, but it never took on the tones that it did in Spain. It was a Roman Catholic tribunal for discovery and punishment of any form of heresy. And it's marked by the absolute severity of the questioning and then the punishment and the lack of rights afforded to the accused. Often the accused had no idea even of what they were being accused of. In Spain at first, the powers for the Inquisition for hunting out and punishing heresy was invested in the bishops. But the bishops were trying to run churches, and they didn't have a lot of time for this, and it wasn't at the top of their priority list. And so a lot of it went unheeded. And so it became clear that there was something more that needed to be done. For some time after her accession, the attention of Isabella, yes, the Isabella of the Columbus story, the Catholic queen, she had been involved in the civil war that was going on. But she was greatly influenced by her confessor, Torquemada, name you probably have heard. Right? He was fanatically opposed to the Marranos in spite of the fact that there were rumors that he had some Jewish history in his own past. It is said that before her brother's death, before the queen's brother's death, so she's not the queen yet, her brother is ruling, but while she's in that state, Torquemada made Isabella take a vow that should she reach the throne, she would devote herself to the elimination of heresy. And during this period, the Pope is no less eager to do so. The Pope is more concerned with those, he's not concerned with the Jews, he's concerned with those who converted and are claiming to be Catholics. 1477, the Civil War comes to an end. The sight of the conversos thronging, there's throngs of them in the court, monopolizing many of the top offices, stimulates the Dominican fray, Alonso de Ojeda, to refresh the Inquisition. A chance episode gives him the weapon that he needs. On the night of March 18, 1478, a number of Jews and Marranos were surprised together at a mysterious celebration by a young cavalier who had penetrated the Jewish neighborhood, not for the purposes of finding any information out. He was carrying on an intrigue with a Jewish woman. Right? His goal is not negative. His goal is to find this young woman. But he encounters this gathering of Jews, and he reveals their secret to the inquisitors. As a matter of fact, it was the eve of Passover, and it was obvious for Jews that they were having a Seder. But as it also usually happens, it also happened to be Holy Week. And for the Christians, the only explanation for the circumstances was that these miscreants had assembled at the season of the Passion of Jesus in order to blaspheme Christianity. Nothing could have served the inquisitors better. All the principal Marranos of the region were placed in their power in a single stroke, and a series of arrests occurs. Many of the richest and most honorable members of Seville, including magistrates and civic dignitaries, were involved. And so they've got all the leadership, and they hurriedly try and condemn them to death. The Spanish Inquisition is kicked off at this point. The first fruits of the Inquisition were seen on February 6th of 1481, when the first auto de fe, the first act of faith, is held. 6 men and women are burned alive. For the next 9 months, auto de fe is continued without any intermission. There was no month without one. Property of immense value is confiscated, most of the proceeds going to the crown. Okay, now think about this. They've been through civil war. What do the coffers of a government look like after a war? Not good.
Poor.
Poor. All right. And to make the point even further, even the dead were not spared, their bones being exhumed and burned after a mock trial. Why? Because if they are convicted, dead or not, the family's possessions could be confiscated. So once again, the money is the thing. By November, within 9 months, 300 people had been burned at the stake and 98 condemned to perpetual imprisonment. The severity of their tactics, okay, the questioning is so extreme that the conversos appealed to the Pope, who in January of the following year wrote to the Spanish sovereigns and said to him, this is not good. He disapproved of the methods being employed. There's not universal agreement on what's going on here. It soon becomes clear that the number of conversos and their actions becomes too great for the tribunal at Seville to handle alone. And in February of 82, 7 other inquisitors are nominated, amongst them Torquemada, the Queen's fanatical confessor. A year later, 1483, a Supreme Council is established to coordinate the work of the various tribunals, and Torquemada is appointed as the head. All this within 2 years. Ferdinand, yes, again of the Ferdinand and Isabella story, pressures the Pope to promulgate a new bull, and the Pope ultimately ends up endorsing Torquemada as Inquisitor General of the areas, and he quickly establishes procedures for the Inquisition. A new court would be established and announced. Jews would have 30 days to come forward with their confessions, or conversos rather, and they were also gathering accusations by the neighbors. Now, the accusations, by the way, once again, there's financial reward here. This is what the Nazis did as well. Oftentimes, if you could get somebody to tell you where there was a Jew, you'd give them part of their property. It was a win-win. So what constitutes Judaizing? What is the Jewish behavior that they're looking for? Friday night or Saturday, here's what we're looking for. They happen to light candles. Bad. Wearing a clean shirt or better garments. By the way, this is a list of how to practice Shabbat. All right. Spreading a clean tablecloth. Putting fresh sheets on a bed. They don't light fires. The absence of chimney smoke. If on the Day of Atonement, they don't eat. They go barefoot. They ask for forgiveness. If they circumcise their boys, if they wash their hands before praying, if they bless a cup of wine before meals and pass it around to everybody, if they pronounce blessings when slaughtering chickens, if they fail to attend church regularly, or, and here's the one that everyone in society knows, I even heard Jay Leno uses, they don't like pork. Right? That apparently is the symbol of Judaism. Okay. Got to eat pork, or as a Jew, you can't eat pork. Nobody else has that. 11 years, by 1492, between 2,000 and 3,000 conversos are burned to death. January of that year, 1492, the year should ring a bell, I hope. Ferdinand and Isabella defeat the last Muslim outpost in Granada. 3 months later, on March 31st, they issue an order claiming that the presence of the Jews had resulted in great damage and detriment to our holy Catholic faith. And therefore, all Jews and Jewesses are ordered to leave our kingdom, never to return, with the 3-month period. So the last day that they have to get out is July 31st. I want you to know that Columbus's ship left on August 2nd. I think it's the 2nd or the 3rd, 2 or 3 days later. It's not unlikely that many of the people converted and were on that ship as a way of getting away. We do know his map maker was a converso. We know that for a fact. and got on the ship so he could practice his Judaism. Jews were allowed to take their property provided it was not gold, silver, or money. And obviously they couldn't take their real estate holdings. So you could take your clothes, etc. That's it. All right, let me see what time it is. Debating, all right, we'll go on. I don't have a time limit here today in the same way. All right, so let's look at the Spanish Inquisition. Let's take a look at its workings. The following account, which we'll read from, is translated from the Spanish, deals with Elvira del Campo, who in 1567 was caught practicing Jewish rites. She is tried in Toledo for not eating pork and for putting clean linens on her table. She admitted doing so, but although she was of Jewish origin, she denied any intention of committing heresy. Character witnesses, including clergymen, testified that she was a good Christian, and she probably was. Her Jewishness consisted simply of not eating pork. She was probably allergic, all right, and observing some of the Sabbath customs which she had learned from her mother and having no idea what they were about. Her father and her husband, evidently both of Christian origin, knew nothing about any of this. The witnesses who testified against her said she went to mass, she went to confession, she was kind and charitable, but she wouldn't eat pork. The chief witnesses against her were two of her husband's employees who lived in the house and had spied around the kitchen and the cupboards and saw that what was missing. She's arrested in early July of 1657. A year later in April, she underwent her first torture, a moderate one. And I'm going to share with you the report of the torture made by the Secretary of the Inquisition. This is not for the weak of heart. All right. If you don't want to hear it, this is the time to get off. We'll finish with this and I'll continue next week. The text demonstrates how it's possible to get innocent people to confess to the most horrible of non-existent crimes, such as the poisoning of wells and blood libels and things like that. How do you get people to confess to Jewish men menstruating? Here's how you do it. All right. So, Sarah, this is a long reading. We're going to break it up. Sarah, do you have the text?
Yeah, I thought that
Brody,
would
do you have the
happen.
text? Just say yes or no. Brody, do you also have the text? All right. Lori, do you have the text? All right. Gina? No. Jeff? All right. So let's start there and we'll go from there. And if we need more readers, we'll go. All right. So Sarah, if you would start.
Sure. She was carried to the torture chamber and told to tell the truth. When she said that she had nothing to say, she was ordered to be stripped so as to allow free play for the torturing ropes, and again admonished, but was silent. When stripped, she said, "Señores, I have done all that is said of me, and I bear false witness against myself, for I do not want to see myself in such trouble. Please God, I have done nothing." She was told not to bring false testimony against herself, but to tell the truth. The tying of the arms was commenced. She said, "I have told the truth and I have nothing to tell." One cord was applied to the arms and twisted, and she was admonished to tell the truth, but said she had nothing to tell. Then she screamed and said, "I have done all that they say." Told to tell in detail what she had done, she replied, "I have already told the truth." Then she screamed and said, "Tell me what you want, for I do not know what to say." She was told to tell what she had done, for she was tortured because she had not done so. And another turn of the cord was ordered. She cried, "Listen me, señoras, and tell me what I have to say. I do not know what I have done. O Lord, have mercy upon me, a sinner." Another turn was given, and she said, "Loosen me a little that I may remember what I have to tell. I don't know what I've done. I did not eat pork, for it made me sick. I've done everything. Loosen me, and I will tell the truth." Another turn of the cord was ordered when she said, "Loosen me, and I will tell the truth. I don't know what I have to tell. Loosen me for the sake of God. Tell me what I have to say. I did it. They hurt me, Senor. Loosen me, and I will tell it."
Brody? Thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
She was told to tell it and said, I don't know what I have to tell, Senora. I did it. I have nothing to tell. Oh, my arms. Release me and I will tell it. She was asked to tell what she did and said, I don't know. I did not eat because I do not wish to. She was asked why she did not wish to and replied, loosen me, loosen me. Take me from here and I will tell it when I am taken away. I said that I did not eat it. She was told to speak and said, I did not eat it. I don't know why. Another turn was ordered, and she said, Senora, I did not eat it because I did not wish to. Release me, and I will tell it. She was told to tell what she had done contrary to our holy Catholic faith. She said, take me from here and tell me what I have to say. They hurt me. Oh, my arms, which she repeated many times and went on. I don't remember. Tell me what I have to say. Oh, wretched me. I will tell all this wanted, senoras. They are breaking my arms. Loosen me a little. I did everything that is said of me. This
What-
continued
Keep going.
15 times until the cords themselves broke. She was then ordered to be placed on the potro, a sort of ladder with sharp edge rungs. And she said, Senoras, why will you not tell me what I have to say? Senora, put me on the ground. Have I not said that I did it all? She was told to tell it. She said, I don't remember. Take me away. I did what the witnesses say. She was told to tell in detail what the witness said. She said, Senora, as I have told you, I do not know for certain. I have said that I did all that the witnesses say. Senoras, release me, for I do not remember it. She was told to tell it. She said, I do not know. Oh, they are tearing me to pieces. I have said that I did it. Let me go. She was told to tell it. She said, Senoras, it does not help me to say that I did it, and I have admitted that what I have done has brought me to the suffering. Senora, you know the truth. Senoras, for God's sake, have mercy on me. Oh, Senora, take these things from my arms. Senora, release me. They are killing me.
Lori?
She was tied onto the portro with the cords. She was admonished to tell the truth, and the garrots were ordered to be tightened. Ropes tightened by the twisting sticks, garrots cut deeply into the flesh. She said, Senor, do you not see how these people are killing me? Senor, I did it. For God's sake, let me go. She was told to tell it. She said, Senor, remind me of what I do not know. Senores, have mercy on me. Let me go for God's sake. They have no pity on me. I did it. Take me from here and I will remember what I cannot hear. She was told to tell the truth or the cords would be tightened. She said, remind me of what I have to say, for I don't know it. I said that I did not want to eat it. I know only that I did not want to eat it. And this she repeated many times. She was again admonished to tell the truth. The court wanted her to confess. She consciously practiced Judaism. She said, I did it. I don't know how I did it. I did it for what the witnesses say. Let me go. I have lost my senses and I don't know how to tell it. Loosen me and I will tell the truth. She was told to declare it. She said, I don't know how to say it. I have no memory. Lord, you are witness that if I knew how to say anything else, I would say it. I know nothing more to say than I did it, and God knows it. She said many times, Senores, senores, nothing helps me. You, Lord, hear that I tell the truth and can say no more. They are tearing out my soul. Order them to loosen me. Then she said, I did not say that I did it. I said no more.
Gina, thank you. Gina? No, all right. Marge, do you have it? You need to unmute.
Thanks. I'm going to pass. It's an unpleasant reading. Let
Yes,
somebody
it
else
is.
do that.
Yes, it is. Rhoda, do you have it?
Then she said, Senor, I did it to observe the law. She asked, what law? She said, the law that the witnesses say. I declare it all, Senor, and don't remember what law it was. Oh, wretched was the mother who bore me. She was asked what was the law she meant, and was the law that she said the witnesses said, and was the law that she said the witnesses say. This was asked repeatedly, but she was silent, and at last said she did not know. She was told to tell the truth, or the garrots would be tightened, but she did not answer. Another turn was ordered on the garrots, and she was admonished to say what law it was. She said, if I knew what to say, I would say it. Oh, Senor, I don't know what I have to say. Oh, oh, they are killing me. If they would tell me what, oh, senors, oh, my heart. Then she asked what they wished her to tell, what she could not tell, and cried repeatedly, oh, miserable me. Then she said, Lord, Lord, bear witness that they are killing me without my being able to confess. She was told that if she wished to tell the truth before the water was poured, she should do so and discharge her conscience. The mouth was distended by an iron prong, the nostrils were plugged, the toca, a linen funnel, was thrust down the mouth to conduct water trickling slowly from a jar. The victim strangled, gasped, and suffocated. She said that she could not speak and that she was a sinner. Then the linen toca was placed in her throat and she said, take it away, I am strangling and am sick in the stomach. A jar of water was then poured down, after which she was told to tell the truth. She clamored for confession, saying she was dying. She was told that the torture would be continued till she told the truth, and was admonished to tell it. But though she was questioned repeatedly, she remained silent. Then the inquisitor, seeing her exhausted by the torture, ordered it to be suspended.
So I wanted to read this whole thing. I don't know about you. I feel exhausted. That's us reading tales. That's not somebody undergoing the experience. I'm exhausted reading about it. The repeated nature of it, it's exhausting. You can begin to get a sense of how somebody could be confessing to things they had not done.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Something about their method of torture, the rack, the garrotes, had to do with something Christian about not spilling blood in the process of extracting a confession. Do you know much about that?
I've not heard that. That's fascinating. Do you know anything about it? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, presumably they didn't cut off parts. They didn't flail. They didn't do those things that drew blood. They just did those things that would rip a person apart on the inside. I think I've seen something years ago in, I think Simon Schama's book.
Right.
And the second question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier about a De Luna.
Right.
Is that the same De Luna who was related to Dona Gracia? Because I think she was a De Luna at one point.
I don't know enough about his history. I don't know. I've not come across that.
Okay.
That's a possibility. Right. Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So she's ultimately sentenced on June 13th of 1568. She had been jailed for a year and tortured. Her response was she had to admit her heresy publicly, wearing a penitential garment of yellow. She was sentenced to prison for another 3 years. And when her sentence was served, the garment that she wore, the yellow garment, would be hung in the church together with her name to publish her disgrace. Her property is confiscated. Okay, the financial piece of it as well. She is never permitted to wear ornaments of gold or silver or silken garments. She's not allowed to carry arms. She's not allowed to ride a horse. And all of those restrictions would be extended to her children and grandchildren as well. So now it's a family in shame. She is beggared. When she gets out, she is beggared. She is ruined for life, and a stain is cast upon all of her descendants. That's where I'm going to stop. I will take comments and questions on anything to this point. I wanted to get a sense of the feel. You know, we all talk about the Holocaust because it's real for us. You know, our grandparents, our parents, somebody in our family went through it, and the Inquisition has gotten lost in history. And I wonder 500 years from now, the Holocaust will be in that same position. I imagine it will be. And so it needs to be told in the same way that the Inquisition stories need to be told. And yeah. All right. We'll continue on next week. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that there's any better stories coming. We'll deal with Khmelnytsky, which is not much, which is equally horrible, and we'll go from there. But this is the history of. I hope you're getting a sense of how things develop, how it plays, and at the same time, in a sense, to be very appreciative of the world in which we live. We are right now, our cases of anti-Semitism are an occasional event. It's nothing like 300,000 people being killed or converting or whatever, forced to convert. All right. I hope everybody does have a good day. Don't let this affect your mood. I know every time, Laura, you have a question.
A quick question. So the next time we're meeting is January 10th?
No. So thank you. So on the 10th, that week of January, I'm taking a course myself, and so I'm not going to be available. So instead of that, we're meeting next Sunday.
Oh, this coming Sunday.
This coming Sunday. I kind of had the sense that most people are not out and partying, so we're not kids, and so it's probably a safe thing to do. And then we'll be off for 2 weeks, and we'll come back. Next week is 11 o'clock. When we come back in January, we're moving to 10 o'clock. All right, so that we can have people attend a number of the sisterhood events as well. We're trying to work with and enable as much as we possibly can for people to do numbers of things where it's possible. It's a problem to have when you have too many good things. Yeah.
Okay. When is the first session in January?
I think it's the 21st. So let me pull up my calendar here.
Your calendar had January 10th and then January 17th.
So the 17th, right?
So it's not going to be on the 10th.
No. I'm off on the 10th. I'm off the 3rd. We're off for New Year's. We were going to be off anyway. I'm off on the 10th, so I have a week-long class I'm taking, and then we'll resume on the 17th.
Oh, Cantor?
Yes.
I have a question about the term confessor that you used before the Inquisition actually began. What did that term refer to?
It's even today when in the Catholic Church, you go and you offer confession. So the priest who is taking the confession probably knows you pretty intimately.
So the person who receives the confession, that's
Yes.
the confessor?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. And this is a person who knows your inner workings pretty well.
And were the Muslims forced into the same positions as the Jews?
The answer is yes. The difference being most of the Muslims could flee somewhere. Okay. We're talking northern Spain, and then the Christians capture Muslim southern Spain, but they could all go off if they all could flee to northern Africa. They could flee to the Middle East where there was Muslim rule. The Jews had no place to go. The other thing is the Jews had been there for 1,000 years. Before this, they had been living the lives that we live here in America. And I say that because I want you to imagine, unfortunately, if you think about it, across America, as much as 50% of the Jewish population in America is not affiliated with any Jewish organization of any sort. It's a very peripheral connection at best. And given the choice between death and conversion, you can imagine that the percentage of that population that would choose conversion would be rather high. That's in America, it would be much more difficult because life is so good. Even for those who have somewhat of a connection, it would take a pretty strong connection to have you and your family murdered, or if you don't do so, it's going to take a pretty strong connection.
It's kind of interesting that, the eating of pork was the big thing, because dietary habits tend to go through generations without any meaning attached to them. I remember when I was a little kid, my family didn't keep kosher, but we were always told that if we had milk with our bologna sandwiches, we'd get sick.
I never told that. But the idea, growing up, we had a kosher home, but we ate everything outside. I grew up eating in restaurants. However, the idea of mixing meat and milk grossed me out. Even
Exactly.
before I'm officially kosher, it just grossed me. It was something that's foreign to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a good Sunday. Enjoy the football games if you're watching them and whatever else. Enjoy your Netflix.
Yeah.
Happy week. Thank you,
Yeah.
Have a
Cantor.
good week,
Thanks,
everybody.
A good week.
Bye-bye.
Good week.
Yes, good week.
Bye-bye.
I'm so confused. I don't know when our next class is.
Next week, next Sunday.
Oh, next week. No, I'm sorry. I was trying to close it. What,